Hello, and welcome back to Daily English Talk. I'm Emily, and today I want to speak with you about something that seems very simple, but is actually one of the hardest things for English learners. We're talking about small talk. Those short, everyday conversations that happen everywhere, all the time, often without us even noticing. Small talk happens when you're waiting for coffee, standing in line, sitting next to someone on the bus, walking into the office, or meeting a neighbor in the hallway. These conversations are usually short, light, and informal. And yet, for many learners, they feel stressful and uncomfortable. If you've ever thought, I don't know what to say, or I'm afraid it will be awkward, or what if I make a mistake, I want you to know that these thoughts are very common. Small talk feels difficult because it doesn't follow clear rules. It's not like grammar exercises. It's not structured. It's human. In my own life, small talk is something I do every day, often without thinking. I don't plan it. I don't prepare sentences. It just happens. And that's an important thing to understand. Small talk is not something you prepare. It's something you react to. One of the biggest misunderstandings about small talk is that you need to be interesting. You don't. You need to be present. That's all. Most small talk starts with something very ordinary. Something that almost feels boring. But boring is good in small talk. Boring is safe. For example, one of the most common small talk sentences in English is simply, "Hi, how are you?" This sentence is not asking for a deep emotional answer. It's a greeting. When someone says this, they are opening a small door. In everyday life, I usually answer, "I'm good, thanks. How about you?" And that's enough. Sometimes the conversation continues. Sometimes it doesn't. Both are normal. Another very common way small talk starts is with comments about the situation you're in. Native speakers do this constantly. If you're waiting somewhere, you might say, "It's really busy today," or "This place is crowded," or "It's taking longer than usual." I say things like this all the time. If I'm in an elevator and it stops many times, I might smile and say, "Lots of stops today." That's it. That's small talk. These comments work because they are shared. The other person is experiencing the same thing. You're not talking about yourself. You're talking about the moment. Weather is another very common small talk topic. And even though it might seem boring, it plays an important role in English-speaking culture. Talking about the weather is easy, neutral, and safe. No one disagrees strongly about the weather. You can say, "It's cold today," "It's nice and sunny," or "Looks like it might rain." These sentences are short, simple, and very natural. In my life, I've talked about the weather with strangers, coworkers, neighbors, and even close friends. It never feels strange. Small talk at work is also very common, and it usually stays light. People don't share deep personal details. They keep it simple. At work, people say things like, "How's your day going? Busy today? How was your weekend?" And again, these questions don't need long answers. If someone asks me, "How was your weekend?" I might say, "It was nice, pretty relaxed," or "It was busy, but good." That's enough. Learners sometimes feel pressure to explain everything. But small talk is not storytelling. It's connection. Another important thing about small talk is that you don't need to ask a question every time. Sometimes reacting is better. If someone says, "It's been a long day," you can say, "Yeah, it really has." Or, "Those days are tough." These responses are natural and very common. In my own conversations, I often repeat part of what the other person says. If someone says, "I just moved here," I might say, "Oh, you just moved here." This shows interest and gives them space to continue. This technique is simple but powerful, and it doesn't require advanced English. One thing I really want to say clearly is this. Small talk does not need to lead to friendship. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It can simply exist in that moment and then end. Sometimes you talk, smile, and then go back to what you were doing. That's not a failure. That's exactly what small talk is. Another thing learners worry about is silence. They think silence means something went wrong. But silence is normal. Native speakers pause. They think. They don't always know what to say next. If there's a pause, you don't need to panic. You can smile, you can nod, Or you can simply let the conversation end naturally. I also want to talk about something very important. If you try to start small talk and the other person doesn't respond much, it's not your fault. It doesn't mean your English is bad. Sometimes people are tired, sometimes they are distracted, sometimes they just don't want to talk. And that's okay. Even as a native speaker, I sometimes give short answers because I'm busy or not in the mood. It's never about the other person. So don't take it personally. Small talk is not about success or failure. It's about practice and presence. When you think about it this way, it becomes much less scary. Small talk gives you a chance to use English in real life without pressure. Even one sentence is progress. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need advanced vocabulary. You just need to be open to the moment and willing to try. And that willingness is already enough. As small talk becomes a little more familiar to you, it's important to understand that it doesn't follow strict rules, but it does follow patterns. And learning these patterns makes small talk much easier and much less stressful. One of the most important patterns is that small talk usually moves in very small steps. It does not jump from hello to deep personal stories. It stays close to the surface, and that is intentional. For example, imagine you're at work and you see a coworker in the morning. You don't say, "Let me tell you about my problems." You say, "Good morning," or "How's it going?" This is not a real question in the deep sense. It's a signal. It means I'm friendly and open to interaction. If the coworker says, "Good, thanks," the conversation might end there. And that's completely fine. But if they say, "Honestly, I'm really tired today," then the door opens a little more. And now your response can follow their energy. You might say, "Yeah, I feel the same," or "Long week already." Notice how simple this language is. Native speakers do not think about grammar here. They react emotionally. This is something learners often struggle with. They focus on structure instead of reaction. Another very important part of small talk is using neutral language. Neutral language means language that does not create pressure. For example, saying, "Busy today?" is softer than saying, "Why are you so busy today?" The first one invites conversation. The second one can feel personal or demanding. In English, small talk, shorter and softer, is usually better. Let me give you another real-life situation. You are waiting for public transport, and someone is standing next to you. You might say, "This bus is always late." That sentence is not a complaint in a serious way. It's an invitation. If the other person responds, "Yeah, every time," then you have a shared feeling. If they don't respond, that's okay too. Small talk is optional. It's not a contract. Another thing many learners don't realize is how often small talk includes uncertainty. Native speakers say things like, "I think," "maybe," "kind of," "a bit." For example, "It's kind of cold today," or "I think it might rain." These words make your speech sound softer and more natural. They also reduce pressure. Learners often speak very directly, which can sound unnatural in small talk. Another common mistake is giving too much information. In small talk, less is usually more. If someone asks, "How was your weekend?" you don't need to tell the whole story. You can say, "It was nice, pretty quiet," or "It was busy, but good." If the other person is interested, they will ask more. Small talk works like this. You offer a small piece. The other person decides if they want more. This is very important to understand. Let's talk about small talk and emotions. Even though small talk stays light, it often includes feelings. People say things like, "I'm so tired," "I'm glad it's Friday," or "I'm looking forward to the weekend." These sentences are very common and very human. When someone shares a feeling, the best response is usually empathy, not advice. If someone says, "I'm stressed today," you don't need to fix the problem. You can say, "That sounds stressful," or "Yeah, those days are hard." This makes the other person feel heard. Now let's talk about body language and tone again, because they are a big part of small talk. You can say the same sentence in many ways. Hi can sound friendly, cold, tired, or happy. In small talk, relaxed tone and soft voice are key. You don't need to speak fast. You don't need to be loud. Calm and clear is perfect. Another important skill in small talk is knowing when not to speak. Silence is not the enemy. Sometimes a conversation naturally ends. You don't need to force it. You can smile, nod, and go back to what you were doing. That's not rude. That's natural. Let's talk about small talk with people you see regularly, like neighbors or coworkers. These conversations often repeat. You might say the same things every day. Morning, cold today, busy week. This repetition builds familiarity. Over time, these small conversations make people feel comfortable with each other, even if they never become close friends. That's the power of small talk. Another thing I want to mention is cultural differences. In English-speaking cultures, small talk is a sign of politeness, not curiosity. People are not trying to know your private life. They are just being friendly. Understanding this helps reduce anxiety. Now, I want to say something very important to you as a learner. You do not need to wait until your English is good to start small talk. Small talk is how your English becomes good. Every small interaction helps your brain get used to real English. Even saying one sentence a day makes a difference. You don't need long conversations. You don't need perfect pronunciation. You just need consistency. The more you allow yourself to have small, imperfect conversations, the more natural English will feel. Small talk is one of the best tools you have to become comfortable in English because it's low pressure and high exposure. And over time, you'll notice that your fear gets smaller. Your confidence grows. And English starts to feel like part of your life, not something separate. If you enjoy this kind of calm, real-life English practice and want to continue improving step by step, make sure to subscribe to Daily English Talk. New episodes are created to help you understand how English is really spoken, so you can feel confident using it in your everyday life. Thank you for listening, and keep going.